What's going on, everybody? Sean Daniel here with Guitar Control. We're doing an absolute beginner's guide to major arpeggios. It may not even be something that sounds like you're interested in, but it's something that is super helpful to your playing, and you'll be very happy that you took just a few minutes to learn how to do this. Really helps open up kind of the visual of the fretboard and how chords fit together and stuff like that. So make sure you click the link below, because there's going to be a tab talking about everything we're doing here. And we're going to break it down super simple. An arpeggio is just a chord played one note at a time. The cool thing about a guitar is it has 6 strings and you can play all of them at the same time. So when you play a G major chord, you put a shape onto the fretboard that gives you the notes in a G major chord, G, B, and D. It doesn't matter how many of each one there are. They'll just kind of sound good together. Now, a lot of other instruments, like a violin or something, you don't have the option of playing like 6 strings at a time. A lot of times you're playing 1 string at a time. So how you'd play a G major chord on 1 string at a time is by playing those notes, G, B, and D, in order, in like a 1 at a time type deal, right? So this G major chord can be represented by what's called an arpeggio, where we just play it 1 note at a time, all right? So it's a drastically different way to play a chord, but it kind of has the same essence of it, and you can start using the notes to kind of maybe spice up your playing. So what I mean by that, here's a G major chord. Middle finger 3rd fret on the E string, pointer finger 2nd fret on the A string, ring finger 3rd fret on the high E string. So there's the sound of a G major open chord. A G major arpeggio is a G, a B, and a D. Now a lot of times you can work these together like a chord. That's like a super kind of basic way to talk about this, but I think it is kind of valuable to see where these notes exist in different locations. So it's really just any major arpeggio. Think of this G major shape where your middle finger's on the 3rd fret of the E string and your pointer finger's on the 2nd fret of the A string. Okay, that is going to be the basis of any root note and its major 3rd, which makes a major chord. We're almost done making major chord. We just need one more note. Here, here, and then 3 frets higher than where your pointer finger is. So if we start on 2, the next note in the arpeggio to complete the chord, otherwise known as a triad, because a triad has 3 different notes. Even though a G major chord, you're playing 6 strings, you're only playing 3 different notes. So root note, the next note, which is always down a string, back a fret, and then 3 notes higher than that, is going to give you a major triad chord. So just because we play here, the only reason this is G major is because our first note, our root note, is starting on a G. If we started on the 4th fret, this would be a G sharp. We could do that, right? This is just, there's your root note, there's the 3rd and the G sharp major scale. 3 frets higher is going to give us the last note we need to complete that triad. So the great thing is you learn one kind of shape, root note, diagonal back, 3 frets higher. You can use different fingers to do it. I think this is the most efficient way, using your middle finger, your pointer finger, and then your pinky. Or you could just middle finger, pointer it, and slide, which has kind of a cool sound, right? Now the disadvantage there is when you go into that slide, you kind of lose base with where you started. So in your mind's eye, you can always think, this is where I was, and jump back to it. An advantage of doing it like this, you don't really have to move so much, even though it might be kind of a stretch, right? But, like I said before, the great thing is all this stuff is movable since we're not relying on open strings. A G major chord shape is great, but as soon as you try to move it somewhere, it doesn't sound good anymore, right? Now, an arpeggio, you can move it anywhere you want, and it's always going to be the same shape, but it'll give you that root note's major arpeggio, okay? So just kind of a good thing to practice, and you can do it rooted on different strings. You could root it on the A string. The 3rd fret on the A string is right here. This is a C, A sharp, B, C. That shape also works. You could try it on the D string. Still works, okay? Now, once you get to the G string, it sounds different because the B string is offset. So really, we're kind of thinking about rooting these on the E, A, or D strings, and then having them be movable shapes. So there's only 12 notes in music. You learn one arpeggio shape. You really learn 12 different arpeggio chords because you can just move them to different root notes, right? That's why it might be worth kind of taking a second to try to memorize some different root notes. I always think like learning like the first 7, like E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and then A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. is a good place to start, just to kind of get those first 7 frets across 2 strings down, because then you can really make any chord with an arpeggio. But something I want to spend a little bit of time talking about is starting to link these arpeggios together in ways that make more musical sense, all right? So what I mean by that is any key, which most songs out there, depending on your genre, stay in one key, which means they use the same 7 notes to make chords, to make scales, to make riffs, licks, whatever. Now, major chords, which you've probably already noticed in a lot of songs that you've tried playing, there's usually only 3 of them in a song. There might be more chords, but oftentimes, if you stay in one key, there are 3 main major chords that get used a lot, right? So we're gonna stick this in the key of G. The 3 major chords in the key of G are G major, C major, and D major, okay? You've probably already heard that in a million different songs. They might not always be in that order. It could be like a C to a D to a G, but you're gonna see that a lot. So we're gonna kind of use what we just learned, this little 3-note triad arpeggio thing, and start connecting them with 3 chords that you'll commonly find together, all right? So we start just like we already did. 3rd fret on the E string, 2nd fret on the A string, to the 5th fret on the A string. However you want to play it. You can play with 1 finger if you want, you know? Which again, it might not be the most efficient way, but there is value because you're just kind of learning the fretboard, the intervals, the spacing between frets, etc., etc. But I'm mostly going to use my middle finger, my pointer finger, and my pinky for this one, right? Now, if you're in the key of G, the next major chord in that key is always going to be straight down a string. Like we said, the 3rd fret of the A string, that's a C. Okay, so now you can maybe come up with like an exercise just with these 2 triad chord arpeggios. And the great thing is, if you look at my hand, it is kind of like almost like a spider movement type thing, which is slightly more musical than just kind of just playing different, you know, notes just to kind of get a stretch in. So it's a great warm-up exercise. It's a great way to kind of see chords in different ways. Great way to gain finger independence, which is something that's hugely important when maybe you're just kind of like starting out playing guitar, doing an intermediate thing, maybe starting to like combine them with like licks and stuff. So try to work these 2 together. And even if you don't do them in this order, think of these as being all different notes that are available to you in this key. Anytime you see a G major chord, same with the C major, right? Even if you see the C major shape now, where your ring finger's on the 3rd fret of the A string, your middle finger is the 2nd fret of the D string, your pointer finger is the 1st fret of the B string, you see these first 2 notes in that chord are the first 2 notes of that arpeggio, right? So, you know, I remember when I first heard the term arpeggio, I thought it was more of like a classical music thing that maybe I wasn't even like interested, being like self-taught. I never really took a second to realize how this stuff worked when I was just beginning guitar. But then you see it and it's like, oh, well, this is actually something that could be super helpful. And it just helped me open up the entire fretboard to kind of do a lot of things. And you can build on this with all sorts of like different arpeggio runs. But it all starts from these really easy triad major chord arpeggios. And then there's one other chord in this key that is also a major chord, and that is a D major chord. All right, but instead of playing it in open D major position, I want to find the D on the A string, which that's going to be the 5th fret of the A string, okay? So we can take that same thing we just did, root note, kind of diagonal one from 5A to 4D, and then 3 frets higher than that. And there's your D major arpeggio. Now, it is helpful to know that like the notes that make that up are a D, an F sharp, and an A, but you don't need to even know what those names are because you're just kind of hitting a shape, right? So now that we know that, we have 3 root notes to branch this arpeggio off from: the 3rd fret on the A string, or the E string, which is a G, the 3rd fret on the A string, which is a C note, and the 5th fret on the A string, which is a D note, G, C, D. These are representative ways to play that G major, C major, D major chord. Instead of G, C, D, we take the first note of each of those, and then we build on them. G, C, D. All right, you might even already hear the beginnings of a song from that. It's kind of famous. But the great thing about specifically going from the C to the D is you even kind of work like a slide in there, which again is another really cool thing about guitar. You can start sliding around and kind of manipulating how you approach different chords, right? So we've got 3E, 2A, 5A, 3A, 2D, 5D, 5A, 4D, 7D. And then back. Now, you don't have to stay in one key. You can do this as an exercise everywhere. I think a cool thing to do is actually maybe kind of skip frets and maybe just do like the even or odd numbered frets, like the dots follow the inlays on your guitar. So you can maybe do 3 on both strings, 5, 7, 9. Again, maybe down to 11. It doesn't have to be the most musical thing in the world. It's just kind of seeing the fretboard and locating target notes and then being able to jump into something, whether it's just a super simple arpeggio that maybe turns into like a more complex arpeggio down the road. It's really just kind of building fundamental, basic building blocks into your playing and just being aware that there's more stuff going on than just maybe like the lowest 3 frets on your guitar. Again, nothing wrong with kind of just playing open chords and stuff like that, but I think you might find just, it's a more entertaining way to kind of go about playing some of these chords when you can start incorporating maybe slides or different notes into, open chord playing. And I really think arpeggios are one of the best ways to do that. So hopefully you learned a little bit. And if you have any comments or questions, let us know in the comment section and we'll get back to you. And make sure to check out other videos on the Guitar Control channel by myself, other great instructors. We're always looking for your feedback, so anything you guys want to see, let us know in the comments. And like I said, we'll get back to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.